I think you and your sickly voice should do the intro.
You want me in my sickly voice to do the intro?
Yeah,
This doesn't sound like me at all.
does a
Say
little bit.
say hi. My name is. Hi, put the deep voice on. Hi, my name is Phil Wolf, and this is Nixon's. No, hello. My name is Phil Wolf. I'm sickly. I'm as always. I'm joined by Mr. Justin Smith, and this is Snakes and Stogies, episode 150. The 150th episode.
The one that Phil was like, we should do something special for it. And I was like, yeah. But here we are.
Yeah, I got man flu. That's what's special.
Bill Bradley's going to be joining us here any moment. I'm waiting on him to pop on. This episode is brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com. We say it every week, and there's a reason we do, because they're awesome. Check them out. You won't regret it. Use the code THN at checkout. Love your new rack and cage.
BlackBoxCage.com.
That's right. I think Jake and I are going to try. We haven't really talked about it yet. Try and head up there next month, pick up some stuff.
Nice.
I'm currently sort of trying to plan out this persimmon cage. Like I want to incorporate bamboo somehow.
Dude, I was just talking. Like, was it with you and Dr. Wyman about the bamboo stuff?
Yeah, where Wyman was like, "Be careful
Yeah.
with bamboo because it'll grow exponentially fast than you expect it to."
Yeah. So, talking about like it growing through a cage, and my buddy Chris was telling me that he did that, and he wasn't paying attention, and like it got to the point where it got up to the top of the cage. Like, obviously, it's not going to necessarily go through PVC, but it 100% broke. It broke the seam of that cage.
Wow.
Like, because it, and he noticed, he was like, man, why is it look bent? And that's why. So
well, you know where they don't have bamboo, or at least I think they don't. The Puget Sound.
They don't have. They're not supposed to. How about that?
They may have bamboo growing up there.
I mean,
they're not supposed to. But if you want to find out for yourself, check out Puget Sound Pythons, also on Facebook and Instagram. See some bamboo. See some orcas. I think wolves and polar bears. I don't know exactly what goes on up there. Certainly some bald eagles if you're feeling particularly patriotic.
Coffee and patchouli oil.
I guess. I don't know.
Definitely.
He's seen bamboo there. They're not even free of it. You could probably go to the North Pole and it's probably growing somewhere.
Yeah, there's just leaves.
Little sprout.
Yeah.
No, leaves. But that was like what I wanted, because we have around the corner from the house, there's some people that have a ton of bamboo growing in one like big patch. And so I was like, I want to figure out if there's any like downed bamboo sections that I could use somehow, and then to get some of like the leaves, like dried leaves, and put those on the substrate. I don't know. So like I got that Old World Rat Snakes book that I've been wanting for at least a year plus. Finally got it. Finally came in.
One, right?
Yep. And in that section on persimmon, they talk about like bamboo forests or something they frequent.
Oh,
so
nice.
How cool would it be? Because the cage is going to have UV. It's going to have LED. It's not going to have a heat panel because they don't, they're good.
Yeah.
But I was like, if I could figure out a way to just sort of recreate almost like a bamboo thicket type deal. And I don't know what bamboo people use that's growing in there that fast, because I just imagine the little bamboos in the clay pots you get at like Lowe's.
Yeah.
With a little zip tie or twist tie thing around the pole. Like, is that what people are using?
I think people, like, I know people buy little seedlings where it's like, it's not a seed per se, like a germinated seed. It's basically the beginning stalk that they plant. Like, they put the whole thing in dirt and it works its way out, But I imagine if you actually come to think of it, when I lived at my parents' house, I had a TV vision with a cobra in it, and I bought one of those little bamboo pots that's like the size of like a little ashtray with the decorative thing we were just talking about, and I buried that whole thing in the substrate, and it grew like, I don't know, maybe 2 foot, and then I killed it.
Grow very fast.
No, I don't think it's the same as like what we're thinking,
But my idea too is to get like a thin sheet of PVC, and screw into the bamboo from the base, so they're basically on like a plate. Like they're standing pieces of bamboo on like a plate that can be covered with the substrate.
Right.
And find some way to incorporate like those crepe myrtle branches that I have, the perches that I've been making.
Sure.
I don't know. So I have like a rough idea in my head of what I want to do. And, having live, like growing bamboo would be cool and all. But if it's going to be a thing where I have to constantly babysit it, because like when Wyman told me, he's like, you got to be careful because it'll break your cage. I was like, no way. And he sent some link or something about bamboo that grows like 2 feet a day or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah. You can literally, if you have enough time, you can sit back and watch it grow. Like if you had like an 8-hour day where you're just going to sit in a lawn chair and just watch it, you could watch it grow, which is crazy.
But I agree. It does look cool, but it's also super invasive. And once it's growing, it's almost like elephant ears. Like once you see them growing, good luck getting them gone without just going scorched earth on that entire section of lawn, because you can think you got them all and then you'll have 5 more pop up.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, what I was going to say is that I'm actually, because I'm starting to, what's up, Billy Boy?
Hello.
I'm starting to piece together my decor for my BlackBox cages, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Kyle is awesome enough to send me landscape photos of the localities of the rattlesnakes that I have that he took. So I'll get those made at those vinyl decal for the back of the thing, like I did with the Ringals cages. And I'm going to do that for each locality. What I was thinking, what you should do is you should do the same thing of like a bamboo forest, but like not cliche, like from ground level, and then do your dead bamboo screwed down to like give the depth of it. You know what I mean?
Well, I wonder if there was a way, like if I found like a shade of green that was very similar to that, because that bamboo that's growing around the corner is like a very deep green. I found a similar color and then coated it with the same poly that I used to coat these perches, which is animal safe. After 3 days or so of drying out, it's fine.
Yeah.
To preserve that color, and then have it to where it goes, maybe to where there's enough clearance to where the snakes don't get stuck between, because they climb. Like those, like Persimmon's climbing on the vents of that BioG all the time, the little ledges. He just loves hanging out on those. Maybe leave enough clearance to where I don't have to worry about them getting stuck, but you still have that lip on the top that would kind of block the view and make it look like it goes all the way up.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Bill, have you ever done bamboo in any enclosures?
I did bamboo in my backyard that I transplanted from a backyard in Kansas. And then I had, I've done dead bamboo as hides and things, built small stuff for rat snakes.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
I mean, it's one of those things where there's a reason everybody uses the fake stuff, right? Like if you're going to grow it in your yard as a privacy screen, it's amazing. And then like I've struggled to grow it indoors for whatever reason. I can grow banana trees and other ridiculous crap. I really struggled to grow that. And then when you get the dead stuff, if you aren't purposely building, like you could build it, or I could, how I built it was small things. Like if I were looking at dart frogs or micro geckos where their enclosure looks more like a diorama of a little, like, oh, if you just look down right here, you would see this edge of mud and some dead crap laying there. Like that looks
a fallen log.
It looks correct, if you just put it in the frame of the enclosure you're looking at.
Yeah.
But anytime I tried to build it in something larger, it looked like I was making snake perches out of bamboo. Like it was hard for me to not make it look like somebody built it.
I was also wondering if you had a bunch of dead and dried bamboo where it gets like super rigid, like what they make like boken out of. Could you dye it like the same? Like I use Rit dye in boiling water. I mean, you'd have to have a pretty large container of hot water, but like I wonder if you could use. Yeah, like if you just filled your bathtub with like really hot water, scalding hot water, it doesn't have to be boiling, and just laid those tubes in there with the colored dye And you could time it too, because like the longer it sits in the dye, the darker it gets. I wonder if that dye would actually like impregnate in the dead bamboo, you know?
So
I would honestly rather paint it and then just coat it. We're going that route.
what if you stained it instead?
Could you even?
If you're
could you even
going more
stain
of
it though? Because of how it's already
Glossy.
I don't know.
pretty
I've
glossy.
never-
Like
Yeah.
I
never
don't
tried
see
it.
that really sticking to it unless you sanded it down real good. Where's Harry? Harry's a woodsman, a woodworker.
Harry is also a woodsman, for sure.
I think the plate idea it might be the way to go.
I think the plate idea is a fantastic idea. I got to be honest, I'll toot my own horn and say that I think if you got the right bamboo forest picture to put on the back, and then you had enough layers of the bamboo on the plate, I think it would give that depth. It would give that like, you know.
Yeah, if you're just talking about depth of field looking through a door of an enclosure, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I wouldn't get like the cliche one off of like Getty Images or anything. I would find a photographer who's like maybe a herper or a birder who found like that forest floor ground level bamboo. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm just trying to sort of plan out how big of a plate it would be. And when I say plate, like how big of a sheet of like thin PVC. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. And then I'd get different size diameters of bamboo and kind of play with it. I don't know. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I want to do it. They already have. I'm trying to get some pothos growing that are going to go in there for sure.
Is that native for them?
Probably. It's pothos. Again, another species that probably is in the North Pole, growing somewhere, impervious.
Meanwhile, it dies in my bathroom.
See, I don't know. Like I'm not going to the hardcore levels of making sure it's native stuff. Like I just want it to look good and have nice visual barriers for them. And even though it's funny, I walk in now and he's on that little ledge of the lip of the vent screens in that BioG, and he just stops and you see his eyes like like you can legit see him like he doesn't want to move his head, but you can see his eyes like trying to look back.
He's side-eyeing you.
And you see his head kind of flatten out a little bit, and he's like, "Get away from me." Female, I just don't see. She stays in her hide all the time, so I'm like, whatever, fine by me. If I can't see you, that probably means you're happy.
Yeah, right. So what's new, Billy Boy?
I was late because, well, twofold. Teresa is in the process of building a filter out of a 5-gallon bucket for some alligators, and there is a zoo facility in Illinois that is closing, and so the disposition of their animals and then the enclosures, trying to figure that out. And then obviously our facility is not ZA or AZA, but how the dissolution of that type of facility is a lot. So I've been getting a lot of texts and messages, and I had a phone call to try and figure stuff out. So we will.
What is there like a certain protocol that people have to go through with that kind of thing if they're in a certain bracket? Where, I mean, obviously it's like, okay, so like hypothetically, if the Jacksonville Zoo closed tomorrow,
well,
like, surely they're not just going to be sending.
So this is actually an interesting topic, and it kind of fits the Snakes and Stogies vibe. The AZA and ZAA, I have neither of those things.
What's ZAA?
It's the poor
like the minor
person's leagues? AZA. Yeah, I guess.
JV league.
So here's the funny thing. Yes, but no. The AZA is just an accrediting organization that your facility can choose to belong to that or not, whatever you choose to do. And you pay to belong to that. And
it's
then
basically an HOA for zoos.
Yep.
Yeah. So the part, if you're actually in this part of the life, it's not like always a cool thing. On the government side of things, it does sometimes help you because the USDA and Fish and Wildlife and these type of folks are more likely to allow you to do things if you are a member of that particular organization.
Right.
However, it isn't a requirement, and it oftentimes gets worded like it's a requirement, and
Right. Right.
it's not. Um, and you pay to be a member of that, and you also, when you are a member, then have to comply with all their things. And so the ZAA is talked about like it is lesser than, or whatever you want to say it, because the fees are cheaper is straight up what the deal is. However, the requirements are almost entirely the same, but the differences are very specific in care for the animals and in the way you're able to interact with some animals. The particular facility that I am talking with folks about right now, they went ZAA because of the protocols involving venomous animals. The curator of this particular facility felt that the ZAA protocols were better, and he felt more comfortable and safer working the way that they work. And like, they're all cool. Everybody that I was working with, they don't always get along, but he just, hey, this is the way I chose to go because of how I work animals, how my veterinary team works animals, matched with what ZAA asked of us. Cool thing is, almost, I think everything but maybe two Massasaugas went to Kentucky Reptile Zoo from this particular facility a few years ago in preparation for this future closing. So that was really neat that they got a lot of really cool stuff in that process. And then, so anyway, so what happens is animals that are stud book registered, very rare, endangered species, things like that. If you're an AZA facility and you get a group of lions, whatever it is, who cares? Those aren't yours. Some of them are if you purchase them, but then because we're all AZA together, you guys are going to give me yours so I can do the breeding, and then I'll give you some babies or whatever because we're all in the same club. So in this instance, it was almost entirely reptiles. And so crocodilians, things of that nature. Only a few of them belonged to this facility. The rest belonged to AZA, ZAA, so on and so forth. And so when the facilities began the process of closing, those animals just have to go back to the people who technically
their original homes.
The thing people don't talk about is when you go on, and it's literally like a little marketplace and a posting pages for zoos of like, I'm looking for Osteolaemus, I'm looking for broad snouts, I'm looking for weird stuff, whatever. I'll send it to you. But I got a whole thing of chicken turtles and some red belly turtles, and they got to go with it. And then you're like, what? Oh, okay. So like these things will show up at facilities, and then it turns out it's 4 boxes. And they're like, I don't want turtles. Like, what the hell? You know? So stuff I'm probably not supposed to talk about on the internet. Those things have to go somewhere. And reality is where they go is people like me. If you are a licensed person, have the things that you're supposed to have, and you are trusted by zoological professionals, things that are not on books can go places that are not on books, is how that works.
Yeah.
In this case, as the facility closes, it's actually the animals they purchased personally, or with it's city things. So with city funds to do educational demonstrations, and so those animals are able to be sold because they were purchased semi-privately by a town, technically. And so those things are potentially going to go to myself and some other folks that do what we do. All of the crocodilians and things like that are going to stay in ZAA and AZA facilities. All the venomous were transferred to Kentucky Reptile Zoo. The few that weren't are Illinois native, so they'll probably go to IDNR small like field stations to show stuff, things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of weird. I mean, well, Phil, I've heard you talk about it in the past, different venomous things and things where it's like, oh, we could never really get those. And it's like, well, it turns out you can only store so many in a zoo, and then they got to do something, and they don't want to kill them. So there's a process for them to sell them and move things.
Well, that's why I wonder, like, we have some animals that have certain, like, Mexican bears are a good example. There's San Antonio Zoo line bears.
Yeah,
so
that's how that happens.
I think there's some diamonds, I think, too.
I have Illinois Zoo line alligator snapping turtles. I have an Illinois Zoo line water monitor. I
think it also comes down to, and this is my personal opinion. I don't have any fact on this. I am not AZA or ZAA or any of that. This is my personal opinion. It also comes down to who's running the show at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have seen a lot of AZA and ZAA protocol that if the general public saw their protocol, there would be outrage. Like the euthanasia of endangered species or the culling of particular species because of a population, a property carrying capacity, things of that nature, which have made me morbidly disgusted with said organizations. But I'm always open to learning more and supporting, science and naturalism and conservation, all that jazz. But there used to be, my segue to this is, it used to be very lax. And basically, from when I was younger, we used to get these, how do I phrase this? Okay. So the importers and exporters would have like a fax list, right? So if it was, Phil's Reptiles is importing a shipment from, Uganda, and I know that I have 30 people that are going to want to buy from this Uganda shipment. So I have this one page that gets auto faxed to like 30 or 40 other pet shops, right? And that's how they do the wholesale list. Well, at the same time, they would also snail mail it. They would hard mail it like in an envelope with stamps, And for those of you youngsters, that's the little sticker that you lick the back of and put it on the outside of the envelope.
And then protected like they're gold.
Yeah, right. And then they would also do what they called zoo surplus. Mm-hmm. And basically what happened is, let's say like Miami Zoo, had 5 breeder pairs of zebras, and they're like, man, we have 5 newborn full zebras. We don't have the space to keep all 5, so we'll get rid of 3 of them. So what would happen is this is pre-group chats, pre-forums,
pre-Tiger
King. Yeah, right. They would send out a letter to all the other AZA places.
That does matter.
Yeah, because Miami Zoo is still AZA, right? And they would be like, hey, any zoos in the U.S., we got 3 zebras. If you want them, you pay for the freight. They're yours because it's AZA. Yep. Well, if no zoo wanted those zebras, they would go to the zoo surplus, and we would get this trifold pamphlet in the mail like once a month, and it was basically a third-party broker who would flat out sell the surplus zoo stuff. So if you wanted a baby zebra, it was like $250.
What was the wildest thing you saw in there?
I can go to an auction in Missouri and get you a giraffe.
I was going to say giraffe is pretty good.
I've also seen a rhinoceros. It was 50 grand though.
That I believe that. No, I remember giraffes were like $2,500, something like that, for like a weaned giraffe, like
just still like 12 feet tall.
Yeah, and again, you still need permits and stuff. Like you still have to have the ability. You can't just like stuff a giraffe in your apartment.
Buying it off eBay.
You realistically only need a USDA Class C license to have mammals that are considered herbivores and not incredibly dangerous. There's a certain list, and then you only have to meet their requirements, and it's much easier than people think.
Well, I was going to say is in Florida, we have a hoof stock.
Shut up.
Oh, by state. Yeah. Way different.
Yeah. Yeah. So like Florida has hoof stock. So like I know. Oh, man, it was like maybe it was like 2005 or 2006. I think Lion Country Safari had like 15 extra kudu or something, and it was like
I remember going to that place.
$50 a head. Are you zoned for agriculture? Do you have a hoof stock agricultural license? $50 a head. It's like, so all these like ranchers in Central Florida, they all have kudu and eland and gemsbuck and Cape Buffalo because of all this zoo surplus. They bought it, they raised their own stock, and now they basically are farming them for exotic meat. Some of them do, canned hunts, whatever.
Yep.
But
is that how people ended up with cassowaries?
no.
Some.
Yeah, but like I know the people that Matt and Jamie are friends with.
Everything that we ask Phil has an asterisk next to it to say, I live in Florida. There's a crazy backstory.
So
it's different.
Yes, there is. Yes, most of them are zoo stock, right? I don't know. We got to ask Matt and Jamie, but the individuals that have the only single wattle cassowaries in the U.S., I think those were imported from, I think maybe Australian zoo stock. I can't remember. But yes, they all came from zoo stock simply because it's easiest.
Why would you want one of those things? Like, they're cool. I know we've talked about it a million times, but it's like,
well, I mean, realistically,
it's a farm. It's a game bird in Florida.
Yeah, when people were talking about,
are they hunting you?
Ostrich, emu, rhea, those type, like there is a niche secondary market in agriculture for all sorts of things like that. I mean,
sure.
Yeah.
One of the biggest emu farms in North America is in Prince Edward Island, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's still there, but them farming some emus. But
there's actually several facilities in Canada that do wallabies.
Really?
They can get thicker fur.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, and especially some of the southern region wallabies, it gets colder. Yeah. There's a point to me bringing this up. We were talking about the AZA practices. Oh yeah, so the surplus list. So we would get this pamphlet in the mail, and you could buy a Thompson's Gazelle baby for $50, which is crazy. Now you can't. Right. And I actually just got an email from Florida Fish and Wildlife that one of their next meetings, which is always on a day and a time that no one can ever go to, agenda push, that they're talking about new laws on captive wildlife rehabilitation, because I guess every single native species it had, I don't know if it had its own permit or like there was a rehabilitation permit and you got like an endorsement for each species, something to that capacity. But they're reviewing that because I think with the big cat stuff going away federally, as well as some of the social media aspect getting a little carried out of hand, I imagine that there is more rehabilitators.
Well, that's Do you think there was a large wave of people who were applying for that type of license when things started getting canned? And
no, I think it's again, my personal opinion and speaking solely for Florida, there's a lot of people that have rehab permits that the state's like, keep what you got, but you're done. You know what I mean?
True. Mm-hmm. So see, people don't take that into account. So that's a thing in Illinois, right? So there are people that do what Teresa and I do, and they have USDA permits,
right,
which are federal. So in Illinois, you can only do venomous that are native to North America on one particular type of permit. If you have 250 hours of accredited education, you're inspected and carry insurance. And then our permit is a little bit different in that we do rear fang and some other crocodilians, and it's basically a level of risk type of thing.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So there are folks who kind of actively fight that, like subterfuge, I suppose.
Sure.
That they are USDA Class C exhibitors and are inspected as such. And then, so now the USDA says, because you have this type of enclosure, lock, hide box, so on and so forth, things that you see Phil talk about, that meets the standard, and now you can get a Cobra, according to them.
Right.
In Illinois, you can't.
Mm.
But because I have this, now someone will ship it to me. So it's this weird back and forth thing.
Sure. It's
And
them
then-
skirting the law.
It's like asking your dad for permission to do something versus your mom, because you know one's not going to say yes, or
Right.
the other one will.
And-
Or no, you know mom's gonna say no, so you ask dad.
Right.
And there's a lot of really weird stuff when it comes to that, especially when you start to talk about mammals and different things outside of reptiles, to where like you're worried about hoof stock and these things, but that's all very state driven. And then they started to figure it out. And they're like, oh, I rehabilitate animals and so on. Because Illinois is like that too. In Illinois, you cannot possess a live native mammal of any kind if you are not a zoological facility or a licensed state rehabilitator at all. None. You can hunt them, which means take them by ending their life and then possess their carcass. You cannot possess a live of it. It's like super crazy specific.
Yeah.
To get your USDA Class C, the easiest way to accomplish that is to already possess 3 exotic mammals, which is easy because you can, like, guinea pigs had like stupid things that people don't think about. You keep them in a manner fitting USDA requirements, which for something like a guinea pig is not difficult. It's the exact same thing you get at Petco. It's just locked. And then you apply, they inspect you and are like, oh yeah, you can do that. And now you can go get an elephant. As long as you have the inspection beforehand that says this paddock can fit an elephant, you keeping those guinea pigs and hedgehogs and crap qualified you to do that. And that permit's only $500.
Wow.
And it's not by animal, it's a singular annual permit. It's insane.
Yeah.
And people really try to take advantage of those things. And it's one of those things where, like, Florida's a prime example of, it feels like that state is really hammering everyone. And in a lot of cases they really are. But then you see stuff like that and it's like, dude, are you being a jerk off to try and get a tiger? Like, I kind of want the state to smack you, but like,
I feel like I really shouldn't talk about this new discussion about rehabilitation stuff, because I'm not a wildlife rehabilitator. I'm not a rescue. I'm just Phil. And B, I didn't read any of the fine print. I didn't read the proposed laws. I didn't read the statute numbers. I didn't read any of it. So, like, again, this is all super grain of salt, right? My take on it is that you have people that want to, because of social media or because they saw someone else with it or whatever.
Mike
they're
Tyson
like,
owned tigers, man. I want to own tigers.
well,
like
I'm not even going.
Mike.
Yeah, I'm not even going that extreme. I'm talking about like raccoon. Like, dude, raccoons are all over Instagram. Like, everyone, their mother.
I want a possum.
Possum's exactly the same thing. Possums,
dude, they
too.
breed
So,
skunks in like 6 or 7 different color varieties now, and they're actually super cool.
Well, and dude, and skunks make absolutely great pets. As long
they're
as
better than cats.
Yeah, they're better than cats.
Daniel have one at M Toxin.
I think he does. I think he still does.
Yes.
So, but again, you look at skunks that are bred for fur bearing, and their surplus are then put into pet trade, right? Opposed to someone who's been feeding a raccoon in their backyard and got friendly with it. And now they say, oh, this animal, oh, it's injured, it hurt its foot, and they bring it inside, and then they're like, oh, I can get a rehabilitation license, and now I got my raccoon. And like that's no bueno. That's not cool. So I think that's a lot of what this is. You know what I mean? And it's not that it's not necessarily that they're cracking down. Again, I didn't read the whole thing, so I'm no one to talk, but it doesn't look like they're cracking down per se. It's more like, hey, these laws were always kind of, implied, and no one really cared. Now we have to put it in actual writing. Yeah. And I think that's what they're doing on this, at least on this one.
And the thing about stuff like that was that laws like that have always existed, right?
Yeah.
It just never mattered because it was whatever small town you grew up in, I guarantee you, if you went to the gas station at a certain time, there's this crazy dude who probably had a possum or a raccoon.
Sure.
And everybody in your county knew who that guy was. And no one cared. They were like, oh, yeah, he lives in the weird house. Like, dude's got a possum. It's weird.
Yeah.
Now that guy's on TikTok. And now that's why it matters.
Yep.
And realistically, that's anything politically or legal, quasi-legal in the United States. Like, everybody's always basically done their own underground crap, no matter what you're into.
Sure.
It's just now you put it on Instagram, and then somebody calls Fish and Wildlife, and they're like, do you know the dude next to me has an eagle? And you're like, what? Where did that come from? Like, I saw it on his Instagram. Like, if you just kept it in his attic and shut up, nobody would know. Like,
yeah. Exactly. And here, I'll even give you a story. I'm quasi one of those guys, pre-Instagram, pre-Facebook. My friends were working on a construction site, and they bulldozed a bunch of stuff, and a mom possum fell out of the tree, and she got killed. And my buddy had the wherewithal to check the pouch, and there was one baby in there, and he took that baby out, and he's like, Phil, what do? I got this baby. And I was like, give me the baby. I made sure it was good. It was already eaten, like solid, and I had him for, I don't know, 2 days. And then I went up giving it to my friend Chris's mom, who is major wildlife, all that stuff. And we named him Dozer, right? And dude, this was the coolest Virginian possum you've ever played with. The thing was awesome.
Dude,
and,
they're awesome.
They're awesome. And she had Dozer for probably maybe 2 years, and then the state of Florida passed a law saying it was illegal to keep Virginian possums, period. So at that point, she called a local wildlife like nature park thing and said, hey, I have this possum that's like bottle fed tame. Do you want him for, exhibits and stuff? And they're like, yeah. So now he's part of their like touch and play with the kids and all that, like what you do, right?
Yeah.
So happy story, but that's an example of like what used to happen a lot. Now it's not. Now it's that possum doesn't go to the nature center when the laws get passed. It gets thrown on TikTok, and now everyone and their mother is catching possums and having issues. So again,
it used to be only the weird kids like us that brought home toads and stuff eventually brought home a squirrel, and you're like, what the hell are you doing with a squirrel?
Yeah.
Like, and
horrible pets, by the way.
Yeah.
Horrible,
but like
horrible pets.
I don't know. Owen seems to enjoy his.
If you grew up like this, you brought home weird stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where like we all have that one friend that brought home, and it's like, it turns out when raccoons like girl raccoons, they don't like you. Like there's, everybody had that life lesson of stay away from that cow for real. Like, but now you can't, you blast it all over social media, and then it's exponential, right? That was a mistake that everybody grew up and made, and nobody but like you, your friends, and your mom and dad knew. Now everybody knows, and you have expanded the number of people that will make that mistake because they saw you doing it and thought it was a good, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And dude, government is always going to react hard to that because that's not something you can control. Like, look how many people, dude. I did the retic video making fun of a bunch of people, and it got like, I'm at like 950,000 views or some ridiculous crap.
Wow.
And it's like, well, if you looked at that from the other side of, I don't like snakes, I'm scared of them, so on and so forth, or you're against that, that's a lot of people that might have thought that was a fantastic idea, and that's scary, you know. And then you make it something Tiger King, you make it, something truly dangerous.
Right.
And then you see how like the little Karen at the church gets scared by that. Like,
oh yeah.
What does this have to do with snakes or scars?
Well, this has to do with you and your most recent proposed acquisitions.
Oh yeah, my bad.
Yeah,
I derailed that.
No, you didn't. It's round circle. We're in it. We're still in it. So, are you at liberty to say what species you're getting, or is that not finalized quite yet? There
is a list. It's for me. It's just going to be stuff to do shows. So different colubrids, rainbow boa type things, just that kind of stuff.
Sure.
When we're pretty set for ridiculous things at the moment. I still have a very large enclosure in the basement that is doesn't have residents yet, so that could accommodate something dumb if I came across it.
I didn't know if like there was like protected turtles that like your son was gonna dabble in, or like you
a
happen to
lot
get
of that
some cool.
stuff. We might help house some of the native things. That is a possibility. Just because we already have the permits and stuff in place for that.
Sure.
And we actually already facilitate for some of the state folks. Like there's a few places. So we're south of Chicago, and then the rest of Illinois is south of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of those places already come to us when they get new people, and they come tour with us, and we show them how to pick up snapping turtles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so we might house some native things for that purpose. Anything that's state endangered typically would go to a state facility, but we can house that if they need that.
Cool.
But yeah, like, I would love to show it off, but I would way rather all the venomous went to Kentucky Reptile Zoo. Like, that's super cool. The crocodilians, a lot of those are the same way. Like, throughout the years, we've had some opportunities for some species. We have the 2 gators now, and that's one of those things where I can house those for the rest of their lives. They get 12 feet long and weigh 800 pounds. It doesn't matter. I currently have the space to do that.
Yeah.
I do not currently have the space to house Cuban or, something truly large. Not that a gator isn't, but
and not to poo-poo the possible danger of a gator, but there's a huge danger difference between an American alligator and a friggin' Cuban croc.
Yeah.
Like,
or really difference. Any of those. Like an alligator, there is a reason that people use some of those species for those things. Crocodiles in general are all intelligent and workable as far as training goes. Right. But is like St. Augustine, all these different, like, you use alligators for shows because alligators are target trainable, station trainable, not necessarily better than crocodilians, but the way that you do it is more conducive to them being around human beings.
Sure.
Sure. Crocodilians, especially when everybody wants Cubans, everybody wants Siamese, because nobody wants to deal with a Nile or a Salty in old age, because they're truly gigantic. So their thought process is, I don't want a gator. Everybody's got a gator, but I can't theoretically deal with a 25-foot crocodile. So I'll get the in-between ones, which is dumb because Siamese are still going to get 18, and a Cuban that's 16 feet long can jump higher than you. Exactly. And so you get into these things where folks are like trying to hedge their bets or trying to make it easier on themselves, and then not accounting for the fact that now you have to deal with a crocodile that jumps. Like, that's,
a crocodile that will gallop after you.
Yeah, Cubans, like, legit,
gallop.
And especially, I hate whenever I say this stuff in public, because I do not want to encourage people to get crocodilians. They are bad pets. Alligators don't hunt large mammals.
Yeah.
And they are not safe. But when you look at them in a spectrum of other crocodilians, they are safer than a crocodile species that actively hunts mammals, large mammals, because you are a large mammal. And especially people like me, I show kids. Kids are small mammals. And it, like, even an adult alligator, like, I'm a bigger dude. Teresa's a bigger chick. Like, that's part of the reason we do bigger stuff. Like, that we have just the physical things to do that. But then when you expose that to smaller monkeys, you have to take those things into account. And so it's one of those things where, like, at one time it was half in jest, but I've told that story before. Like, we had the chance at an Orinoco, and it would have been an amazing display, but I would
Sure.
never take that in public.
Yeah,
know,
you
that
couldn't.
defeats the
You couldn't.
purpose of doing what we do. You know.
Yeah,
I support the Beards and Beards podcast.
That's right.
and that's cool, man. That's cool that you're gonna keep some of the native stuff. And the Massasaugas, they're native, right?
They are in Illinois. They're considered an endangered species.
And that's not something you would be able to dabble in, even like to try and captive breed them for other state funded or state, run facilities.
That is a weird. Illinois has a lot of weird laws because our Reptile code was rewritten in 2015, and we are a lot like Florida in that this state is pay to play, buddy.
I get it.
And so that law was written pretty broadly, but with some very finite limits on things in order for it to get passed through the legislature.
Okay.
And so breeding, propagating anything that's endangered, like there's so many hoops. We probably are one of the few, Teresa and myself are one of the few people who could fit through all those hoops. But honestly, I don't even feel like it would be worth it.
It's not worth it for a pair of dinker rattlesnakes. No offense to Mississippi.
Well, my thing is the things that are endangered in Illinois are not in the states to the west of us. We are the eastern limit for a lot of things in the western and central United States. And, alligator snapping turtles, ornate box turtles, coach whips. There hasn't been a coach whip seen here since like the early 1800s. Eastern diamondbacks. What else? Not Eastern diamondbacks. I'm sorry. In the extreme south. That was a weird thing because there was timbers and people got all weird about it. Massasauga was just goofy things to where it's like, yes, naturalists in the late 1700s and early 1800s saw rattlesnakes from St. Louis to Wisconsin. And you can currently find rattlesnake dens for timbers in Wisconsin. You're not going to find one in Illinois unless you're on Snake Road, period. You aren't. And so it's one of those things where like, we could just go to Wisconsin and get timbers. Like they have a ton of them. It's endangered here because of the urbanization of Chicago and the spread to where if we helped produce Massasaugas or even something benign like Blanding's turtles, there's nowhere to put them, man.
Yeah.
Like Blanding's turtles estivate and hibernate in combination like 9 to 10 months of the 12-month year. They wake up, eat every tadpole they can find for about 2 months, and then lay their eggs in a parking lot. And I don't know what to do with that.
The species continues.
I'm able to get them from folks in Texas and other places that breed spotted turtles and Blanding's turtles and all these things. Florida breeds every turtle species on the planet. Indian pond turtles, which I dearly want, are $25 there, but I need a $500 federal permit to bring them here unless someone gifts them to me, my friend Phil. But it's one of those things where
remind me to circle back to those Indian spotteds, by the way.
But it's one of those things like if I got the extra 4 permits and 2 more inspections, and then Teresa and Walter built another crazy filter off the gators to do the Blanding's turtles, and then we went through our veterinarian who does rehabilitation for the state, and where are they going to go? What are we going to like? They're going to go to the other 3 people in the state who are willing to do what I'm going to do. And then we're never going to breed them again because we'll run out of space. Like, or to Texas because that's cool. Like what? That doesn't help Illinois. Like,
I get it, man. It makes sense. It does. And it's also, I've seen where people had a animal that was, say, protected in some facet, and it was a confiscation or it was injured or rehabilitation or whatever, and it was given to someone like you, and that person was like, oh, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to breed them. A, it's going to be cool. B, I can say that I did it, and have fun with it. And then I'll just give the offspring to other facilities for their education programs or whatever.
For sure.
and then no one wanted them.
Yes.
And it's like, now what do I do? You know,
because
literally no one wanted them.
the people discount that, like, especially in the United States. When you say endangered species to Americans, they think of pandas.
Yeah.
Right. Those aren't endangered here. We have our own bears, and they would eat pandas because they're awesome, and we have a bunch of them. They're not endangered.
Pandas are the alligators of the bear world.
But the things that are endangered here are brown, small, and boring.
Yep.
And they're endangered because where they live is crappy swampland or covered in sand, and so we paved it and built stuff that we care about.
Condos.
And that's it. Like, some of the more endangered things here are salamanders and frog, like things you don't care about. And so if I kept all of them, like at one time our goal was to do like a wall of endangered species for Illinois. I had like 2 Boy Scout troops in 3 years that had any interest in even coming to see the stuff.
That's so sad, man.
I went to, so at one time the Chicago Herpetological Society had Reptile Fest. That was the largest education-only reptile event in the country, maybe internationally, but there's some really cool stuff in Asia, which is just naturally larger than us for population centers. But, dude, that was every year. They sent out an email every year. Hey, we're trying to display all of the species native to Illinois. Can anybody help us? This, that, and the other. We showed up with so much stuff, and then there were like 6, 8, 10 people would show up each year, and then we would put all of the things out on the table to make sure that they had all the stuff that, and we were always missing a couple of weird salamanders or whatever.
Yeah.
But, and then people would like, oh, that's really cool. And then they'd go look at my retic, or they'd go look at somebody's tegu, which I understand, but that's not ours.
Yeah.
Ornate box turtles are ours, you know. But then for you guys, you can go look at Easterns and Gulf Coast and Florida's for box turtles for you, and find what basically is a cherry head with orange legs, but in the size of a box turtle. You guys have baller box turtles, so cool in the American Southeast.
Yeah.
Who gives a crap about ornates? Ornate box turtles aren't actually ornate; they're brown. Like, that's not cool. Like, this has nothing to do with anything about snakes.
I've seen some super orange box turtles here, like unbelievable. Like,
yeah,
if you took
you
an
guys have awesome
corn and turned it into a box turtle, that's what you got.
Yeah, I got the yellow head, yellow leg by me,
which are beautiful.
They're awesome, man. Awesome. And it's so cool, like getting on a Sunday morning at the right time of the year. And then I got this one dirt road that's north of Anna Maria, like 25, 30 minutes north of Anna Maria. And it's got one, if you're driving down the road, on one side is like flat marsh, and the other side is a deep, crystal clear man-made canal. And you go out at like, I don't know, 8 a.m, and you just see all these little boulders moving.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, it's awesome. It's awesome. But I get what you're saying. I do. And it sucks, but it makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
So
native stuff just isn't sexy enough for a lot of people.
Most isn't sexy enough for a lot of people, you know? So,
well, until you get to the Southwest, and then Alterna and Baird's and
it's magical. It's another it's another plane of existence.
So anyway, do you guys actually have things about snakes and stogies, or did I just take that over? And
no, it was good, man. I love
55 minutes in.
It's fine. Let it roll.
What about Indian spotted turtles?
Oh, yes. Thank you. So I'm not a turtle guy.
I got to look these up because I don't know.
I'm not a turtle guy. Hamiltoni is the species name, FYI.
Or anything in the Podocnemis genus.
Yeah, anything in Podocnemis genus, really.
Podocnemis.
People in Florida breed them like mad. They get gigantic, and I can't have them.
Well, so that's what I was going to say is I'll never forget the first time I ever saw a Hamiltoni in person was a full grown adult. And
Oh, wow.
it was a full grown adult, and somebody had, I'll leave out names and everything else, but where I was working at the time, somebody had imported a trio, like legit papers, the interstate commerce shit, like legit papers, and they were 7,000 each.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And and before permits and licensing and whatever else, and they were sent to where I was working for safekeeping. It's kind of like you have your diamond delivered to the bank, not to the jewelry store. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember the guy who bought them. So like, man, I pay a lot of money for these, but you know what? They're gonna be worth more than galops. They're gonna be worth more than aldabras. Like this is the turtle, and then eventually it's gonna get so popular that the interstate thing is gonna be null and void, and like had all these delusions of grandeur. And then the next year, he produced them, and he sold all the babies, like literally, silver dollar size babies. He sold them for I think $1,000 a piece.
Mm-hmm.
And then next year they were 800, and the year after that they were 500, and now I think what's Wayne Hill selling for? Like you said, like $50, right?
Yeah, sometimes they go on sale for like 29.
Yeah, it's wild, man.
But that's the thing, dude. They're just a pond turtle.
Yeah, but
and where you live,
but they are really cool. Like, I mean, I'm not a turtle guy, but they're super
saying,
fun turtles.
But for you guys living where you live, it's like, oh yeah, it's a pond turtle from someplace warm. Be fine. It's all good.
Yeah.
Like, the only thing you guys would struggle with is like moremus or weird Asian species that want to be cold. Sure. But dude, any place that's tropical, like they breed like mad. And then everybody in Florida is like, hey, not really endangered, because it turns out there's more in Florida than there are in all of India.
Yeah.
This is the only spotted turtle that matters.
Spotted turtles are amazing. Podocs are the same way. The last time they released baby podocs in South America, I want to say it was the yellows. It was like several 100,000 babies they released into a river.
Wow.
Because if you take out because it's us, it's not the river didn't dry up or go away. The whatever bad thing happened to turtles specifically, and a lot of amphibians, it's us.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take us out of the equation and just put them in a pond in Florida in somebody's backyard where nobody will mess with them, they're fine.
Yeah.
There's not some weird cataclysm that stopped them from having babies. It's just a bunch of jerk off humans.
Yeah. Condos, man. Said it before, I'll say it again. So let me ask you this. All joking aside, because we at the Herbiculture Network are by the book, on the up and up, you could get gifted babies. Would if I was going to gift them to you, would I still have to pay the $100 one-time crossing state lines ESC permit? Because I know, like, if I was let's say I had a rehab permit and I rehabilitated sandhill cranes. Well, sandhill cranes are not protected anywhere except for Florida. I know it because they're protected. They're not endangered. They're threatened or protected.
Right.
Whatever the state status is, species of special concern or something.
Right.
I can pay the U.S. Fish and Wildlife one-time $100 permit, and once the permit gets approved, I would just ship them to you. I don't know if that plays a factor because they're not native, and I don't think are they actually endangered? Are they like classified endangered?
Yes. So that is the problem with the ESA federally. Our Endangered Species Act covers any animal deemed to be endangered, regardless of whether or not it's native to the United States.
Right, but can I do the $100 permit for galops too?
Yeah.
So so if
you can. Yeah.
So then so it is only $100. Then
it's one of those things where, that is. Nobody in our political spectrum is ever going to care about that. But like,
I mean, obviously,
there's more
giving to you.
No, I just mean like as far as how silly that truly is. Like,
sure.
If in some way just sit in front of a senator and talk to them and be
Yeah.
like, there are more Fiji iguanas in Canada than there ever will be in Fiji.
Right.
How absurd is it that you can't just drive north of New York and get them and bring them? Like it's never going to impact Fiji, right?
Right.
If
Right.
I come hang out at Daytona and I go home with a spotted turtle this big, it's probably 8 or 10 generations removed from anything that ever saw or smelled India.
Yeah.
You know, it's absurd to think that would affect wild populations in some capacity, and the way that we do it is so crazy.
Yeah, I agree. Well, when you come to Daytona, you let me know.
Right.
Are you coming down to get BlackBox stuff again?
I believe that's the goal. I think, because isn't the Georgia show that we went to in March, maybe?
Yeah.
I think Casey said something about that.
Jen said they are not vending that one, though.
Okay.
So,
well, I mean, at some point, I traverse the United States a little bit more now, so. What snake and stogie things are you guys doing tonight?
I mean, honestly, we didn't have a game plan. We just kind of kicked it.
Winging
I know Billy Jenkins had mentioned talking about sort of room layout and flow.
Ooh, okay. That's
I thought
cool.
was pretty interesting. We were initially, when you came on, we were talking about how I want to set up the persimmon cage once I get that in.
Right.
And
Which
that's
are
where the bamboo talk came in.
looking.
So I wish they were friendlier.
I don't care. They're beautiful.
So we'll see. I have a fairly clear plan in my head of what I think I want to do. Just gotta do it, and I gotta get more of these perches done because I plan on almost doing like the whole back with a bunch of like staggered ones and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
the way you're doing those, like the perches, that I think that could be really cool. I'm trying to think of how. So I imagine, like, because the black box, literally being black, and you could make like some crazy. Because my thing is, if you just frame it from when you took the picture, the snapshot through the door, right? If you had the backdrop like Phil was talking of for really anything, but that backdrop was leaves and branches and forest, and then the branches like you're doing, and then something maybe like the Hobby Lobby like silk type leaves or something. You could make the picture of in the door frame just nothing but the branches, man. And then that to me, like something like a rhino rat or something like that, just in all, it makes me think of like the vine snakes and things like that. Like I think the potential for the stuff that you're making with those branches, aside from just really good perch ideas, to actually use those as like the depth of field for, dude, I think it's gonna be really cool.
Yeah, and we have like 5 crepe myrtle trees out front of work, and I was looking at them today, and there's like perfect size because I try to go for like 2-inch diameter and below. Obviously nothing super thin, but I was looking at those trees today, and I talked to my boss. And I was like, "How much do you love those crepe myrtles? Because A, they need to be trimmed legitimately, and B, I was like, I'm making these perches, and I was eyeballing some of those branches on them, and they're like exactly what I'm looking for. And I still have a bin full of raw ones that I have to like debark and sand and stuff like that because I'm doing it all by hand, so it does take some work. But I've got a handful done already. I put like 3 or 4 in that rhino cube,
right?
Which I think I hurt his feelings, so I took away the PVC perches that were in there. And like he's just been moping under his uses cork bark. And then I have 2 in the persimmon cage right now in the BioG, and he uses them semi-regularly. But I'm using like a low VOC polyurethane, and I talked to James Oakdale and our buddy Harry about it, and James told me coat it, sand it, coat it again, and then give it a solid 3 days or so to dry out and stuff, and it should be good to go, because he uses that on his cages that he builds, because he's a furniture guy too. And I don't know, so far they look real good. So.
Here, I just found this real quick. I just typed in bamboo forest base, and like obviously this picture is not the best angle, but like if you got a photo like this, it doesn't even have to be clear, it could be blurry, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're simply using this for the background, and then you still have
what about that like petbackdrops.com or whatever?
That's exactly who I use.
Oh yeah, I would say I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I use. And I'm so excited. Kyle's sending me those landscape photos from where the rattlesnakes are from. That's gonna be so awesome. I'm gonna get stones that match, and like, oh, I'm excited. Because dude, those petbackgrounds.com comes out so nice. It is nothing like the Petco back of the aquarium nonsense that you buy from them, where like you stick it on the back of the tank. It's not. Yeah. It's anti-glare matte vinyl that adheres to the inside of the enclosure. Mm-hmm. It's awesome. But yeah, I think if you did like those bamboo, like I was saying, and then you have your bamboo on the flat piece of PVC, like silicone in or whatever, I think it would give so much depth.
Mm-hmm. And and I mean, like that rat snake book also has pictures of sort of where they're found. And it's very similar to the rhino rats in that it's usually close to water, like some sort of water source, bamboo forest. So it's it'll look good. And I think if I add the dead leaves and maybe take some decent size pieces of bamboo and cut them in half and use them for hides, and throw in some cork bark or something, I think it would look good. So.
Yeah, man. Oh yeah. Do just a bunch of bamboo leaves just dried out as leaf litter. Oh, that'll look great. You'll get the brown and the green together, the tans and the taupes. Oh.
Matt says, what if I, when I put them under UV, that he's like, those things are going to turn blue.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Should be cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Justin, since we're talking about, enclosure decor and such, didn't you have a topic about room stuff you want to go over tonight?
Billy Jenkins requested
Jenkins.
That we talk about room flow and room sort of layout. And I don't know if you guys do anything specific. Mine pretty much is based. Yeah, there you go. Mine is more based around temperatures. So like the Aki cage is a kind of the focal point of what goes where. All the rhinos and even the Jansenii, like I've unplugged their heat panel, and the Persimmon don't have heat, and all that stuff I have sort of in that corner because it naturally, it's a little warmer and they do okay. I also have all the other, like all the racks, they're not even plugged in. I don't have heat running on any of those. And I kind of just have it planned accordingly. Like I was running the racks and stuff at first with that Aki cage and realized just how warm it was getting in there. So, cut all that off and just let it run ambient. And even now that they're in the BlackBox cage, it's not as warm in the room ambient as it was like when I had them in the Python portal setup, which was a lot thinner of a material. That heat radiated a lot more into the room. So it's not as bad now that they're in that thicker PVC, but that's kind of how I base it. And then just overall, like flow of things, if I can stack, I try to keep younger stuff in similar racks. Hatchling stuff is obviously going to go in smaller tubs, and then your older stuff is going to go in the V70s and the 32 quart equivalents and things like that. And then I have a bunch of corns that are in small not small, but like decent sized Tupperware. That's like younger stuff. That's a year or so or below, and those are all stacked on the other side of the room on top of a V70 rack stack that I have. So, and then there's that god awful Canberra rack. So that's just its own set of things. But
and so the majority of your room is ambient, right?
Entirely.
Yeah, but again, almost all your stuff is temperate and enjoys the traditional Western room temperature.
I don't know. Even the chondros, man. Like I'm kind of becoming of the opinion, at least here in the Southeast, that chondros you don't really have to keep them on heat. You can keep them at just like rhino rats, rock them at room temperature, and they do great. Like I don't have any issues with them. So
yeah,
I don't know. What temperature do I keep my room at? It typically, I think the hottest it'll usually get midday currently is like maybe 80. And then it gets a nice dip at night because I turn off all my lights and stuff. Ackie cage goes dark, everything. So they get a decent drop at night. But like I said, everything seems to handle it well. I did have some issues. I had a couple of corns regurge when we had that serious cold snap because I fed them and then I not even thinking about it. You know, the room dropped pretty low, and I had some corns sort of they didn't take well to that after they ate. But for the most part, I don't have any problems. I actually thought it was kind of odd that it was the corns I had the issues with in that because that's like the species you would least expect to do that with. But yeah, in the summer it definitely gets a little warmer. I think it gets kind of bumped up to low to mid 80s, and that's when I do have to kind of pay a little more attention as far as the Ackie cage goes and stuff, just making sure it doesn't get too hot in there. I don't know. I really don't even put a whole lot of thought into it. I don't worry about it too much. I've been running stuff. Even the Boigo, when I had the Cyanea and stuff, I didn't have those on heat. They were at whatever the room was. They did great. Like
my Boigo's not
I think
on heat either.
Yeah, I think a lot of people now are starting to kind of realize, like, unless it's a species that calls for something hotter than like an 85-degree warm spot, I don't see any reason to really keep a very large majority of species above that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even still, the stuff that is super duper hot, it can take and would prefer a freezing cold nighttime.
Well, yeah, and that's like they're getting big drops. I had someone at the cigar shop yesterday. He's one of the guys that works for the sheriff's office. He got a bearded dragon, and he was asking me, he's like, they say I'm supposed to keep this thing at like 110 at the hot end. And
the hot end?
He's like,
the whole hot end.
He's like, I'm worried, like, turning it off at night. And I was like, well, how big is it? And he's like, it's about a year old. So it's, 8-10 inches, I think. Something along those lines. And I said, dude, I was like, where they're coming from? Like, yeah, it's hot as hell during the day. I was like, but at night, it gets chilly. I was like, you could turn everything off at night for that thing. And I'm sure it'd be fine as long as your house isn't, a fridge. Even then, it'd probably be okay. Because even like the Ackies, those, everything that I heard as far as hotspot on those is like 150 plus. And then listening to Scott saying, it doesn't get 150 degrees where they come from, which is a good point. So even if they get a little cooler, it's like whatever, they'll be fine. But that's what worked for me in my particular region of the country. It may not be the case for someone up in like Bill's neck of the woods or Puget Sound.
I can tell you that with an Ackie, Uromastyx, beards, Savannah monitor, whatever. Currently, and for years now, I have not used anything more than 100-watt mini halogen from Zilla on any of them.
Mm-hmm. Dude, those 100-watt halogens are amazing.
Oh, I will say that they are, for the beards and the Ackie, that bulb is inside the enclosure.
Mm-hmm.
It's still, a foot from the lizard itself.
Yeah.
But they are inside the enclosure, so that does obviously increase the heat quite a bit. But for the Ackie, that singular bulb is inside an enclosure that's 4 feet tall, and then for the beards, it's inside an enclosure that's 8 feet long, and there's nothing on the 8 feet away. There's nothing. I mean, there's like a plant light or like a light, but
sure,
I don't do anything for the other side of the beard enclosure, and those idiots run back and forth all day and night. They don't care. Like,
I use the 50 halogen on the girdle tails, and they have the ability to sit directly underneath it or go to the bottom. So it's just sitting on top
or
of the
what did I
screen.
say? 150.
100.
Sorry.
You use 50?
The bigger one.
The bigger one, I think,
they
is
do
100.
50 and 25, right? Or do they do 100?
I know there's 100 one, but it's not, doesn't look the same. I think it's circular.
Okay, so then
the one I use, all
bad.
right, so 50. So perfect. So I use that, and it puts the basking site at like 105, and the lizards choose to go sit underneath it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like crazy.
Yeah.
But again,
crank up in the morning, run around, do lizard stuff.
Exactly.
If I feed them, they go back. Otherwise, they don't really.
Yeah.
They don't just sit there.
And just like I'm my room right now is not as cold as I'd like it to be. It's probably 69, 70 right now, but I just checked my weather app, right? So the closest weather station in the Negev is an airport called Of the Airport. It's 46 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
But the high earlier today was 61, and then in July it's going to be 120.
Wow.
Yeah. Sure.
So like people, they still got that old mentality of like, I got to cook it,
Mm-hmm. Well, I find too, like a big thing for me with the ambience is like when you have that going, you get to sort of take advantage of the natural flow of seasons too.
Oh, sure.
Like in the summer, nighttime, my room doesn't get nearly as cool as it does, even with the AC on. It doesn't get nearly as cool as it does this time of year. And like that, the animals are going to pick up on that, I think, especially if you're starting to, like with the Jansen I'm misting pretty heavy right now in the mornings, even if it's a little on the cooler side. With that Ackee cage and stuff, it warms up in no time. But that and like natural photo period and having a window in that room, you kind of get the benefit of naturally having a swing that matches the season, in your room. And aside from things that I'm cooling separately outside of that room, I think that coupled with cutting back on feeding for some things like the chondros in particular this time of year, it's not the extreme version of a seasonal shift, but I think it's enough to make a difference in the animals. I think pick up on it. But
oh yeah,
I think it makes it easy. Personally, I like it.
Well, I never had experience with portable air conditioning units, and I think it's because back in the day when I would have considered something like that, the only option you really had was like the old school window unit. And I wasn't keen on that, and I was never a fan of them. But now with like the little sharper image tower ones, whatever you want to call it, aging myself there with sharper image, but you can find them for like $300, and they will make that room cold.
Mm-hmm.
So this summer, my goal is going to be to do my homework and find the best one that's used for my climate. Because come this next winter, like it's too late for this winter, but this like winter 23 into 24, I want to be able to have that room get at least into the 50s every night. If I can break the 40s every night, but then bring it back up to like 65 during the day. Because now that I've got some of the montane rattlesnakes and I'm really focusing on some of the more on the desert stuff, I really feel like that's going to be a big deal for me to get stuff to do what I want it to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, room size is going to be sort of the biggest factor, I would think, in that.
Yeah, and I think
a bigger room is going to be harder to cool and sort of warm back up in a regular daily interval, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like if I can at least get the ambient of the room itself 15 degrees or so, I think I'll be in business.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it doesn't work, then obviously I have to go to some kind of chiller or something that would be temporary for brumation. But as of right now, summer, the ambient room is like 82. But then like in the Cerastes, the hot spot, the hot side is 100.
Yeah.
So like, but then at night it drops back down to say 72. So I can get the swing there because it's got the heat emitter going, throughout the day. But the room itself, I'm gonna have to feather it. You know what I mean? Because I'm not gonna put heat lamps on the Montane stuff. It's dumb, especially when the room's 80.
The biggest complaint with my room is that it's on the smaller side. So when it starts to warm up, it gets pretty warm pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah, my venomous room is the size of your bedroom, Justin.
Oh man, lucky.
Yeah. But
trying to get Katie to switch, and she won't do.
Yeah, they never do. No bathroom, no closet, but the same size as your bedroom. So.
I am not helpful for this particular discussion. So,
well, you are because you have multiple rooms. You have a legitimate facility.
True. Yeah. I mean,
you didn't just throw cages in willy nilly.
No. I mean, I do the same things that you guys are discussing. I just, I have a snake room and a lizard room and, that type of thing. But no, the formatting is all very similar. I do have typically in herpetoculture anyway, most of the very large things that we keep are desert and savanna animals anyway, aside from things in the iguanids. And so that, like, the front of my facility, when you walk in, is most of that really big stuff. So it's very warm up there. The beards, leopard geckos, that kind of thing are all in a very a large unit that's next to the green iguana. So that's a dry for them. And then he has his own mister and stuff as that goes. So things are grouped together. I have our water monitors in an 8x4x3 that I made, which is actually basically a stand for an 8x4x2 vision style that's got a berm in it. So the berm sits on top of the water enclosure. And so he's got blast on his side, and then she has it's a 24-inch wide radiant heat panel, and so I don't have to cook her nearly as much because she's getting heat from both ends.
Yeah,
which I took into account because berms are very fat and thick. Yeah, man, my Aki enclosure is on the hot end of my retic enclosure, so that I kind of coupled that together just to raise the ambient.
You still got the Panoptis?
Yeah.
Sweet.
But like things like that, like now I'm getting into I use deep heat projectors for a lot of things, and so now I'm more concerned with distance between that and the animal. So I'm playing around a lot more with that. For me, being in the Midwest, I know a lot of people there are some people that have concerns with leap habitats, but their foggers, I can say from experience, are freaking amazing.
The one with the big reservoir?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I was just looking at that.
Dude, I have like 8 of them now. I put them on everything. They're so cool. I have gotten really into nighttime fogging, listening to the chameleon folks and how they're going with hydration and things like that.
Awesome.
I'm going to try to either write it out or make a video or something and how that relates to giant pythons and how people struggle with their shedding. We've always known that that's a dehydration issue for the animal, but more on how to better hydrate them without having a pond, essentially, when they're gigantic. I'm convinced that it is ambient humidity anyway.
Basically saying that the ambient humidity will lead the horse to drink?
A little bit of both in that. Okay. So the idea for the chameleon folks is that where they live, forest edge, as that fog moves in at nighttime, especially for animals specifically to Madagascar, but a little bit for montane things in Africa as well, that we are not accounting for the fact that a huge portion of their hydration is as they breathe while they sleep.
Really?
And that they are, a lot of folks in the chameleon side of things are equating that to tropical animals as a whole. That in the tropics, especially as humidity raises at nighttime and cloud forests and things of that nature, that a lot of the tropics is more cloud forest than you think it is. Cloud forest specificity has more to do with altitude than anything.
It's funny you say that too, because I've always wondered. I think about it a lot, especially with chondros, is like how much of their hydration is from just aspiration and breathing.
And I will say, if you listen to the Chameleon Academy folks, which I do, they've proven it. Like there are published things in chameleons that it's for real. And so,
and not just the montane stuff.
Yeah, it's a concerted effort in the chameleon side now to work with that. And so I have no reason to think that wouldn't be also true for any tropical animal.
Sure.
With exceptions to microclimate, so on and so forth. And so I'm really making a concerted effort to raise humidity at nighttime for anything I have that's tropical. And so the layout of my building, whatever, didn't necessarily account for that before. And so something like I'm cutting down a little bit on circulation in some things, or maybe I'm just cutting down on the circulation where I'm putting the fogger or whatever. But as far as temperature goes, yeah, man, like I love those, the little Zilla microhabitats. I use them for all sorts of small stuff because I can display them really well. And so when you go in the lizard room, like I have Euros, a Savannah, different things that are just blasting. And then there's nothing on any of my small stuff. And then I put, I have small African stuff. Well, it happens to be next to the Savannah on the hot side. And then as I go to my amphibians, they're 4 feet down the shelf by nothing, and so, the concept is the same as what you guys are talking about. It's just, more than one room or longer space or what have you, that kind of thing.
Do you struggle with the serious winters at all in terms of keeping, like in certain parts of the building? Do you struggle?
I don't. My building is it's downtown, and so it's an interior building. I'm not on the end of the street, and so it does get very cold I have big plate windows in the front. It gets very cold in the front of that. I keep actually all of our plants are in the front when they get brought in. I keep a lot of the cactus up there to overwinter them. I have, as you come into my facility, that's currently empty, is our it's essentially a jewelry display case that we use as like a little cash register type area. That one doesn't have anything in it right now. Behind that is a 6x3 tall, 2 deep maybe. That's got my beauty snake in it, so that gets a little bit cooler, but I've purposely humidify the crap out of that for like ferns and stuff. That beauty snake loves it. He doesn't care. And then there's a 75 aquatic on the opposite wall. I only put like temperate or native stuff in there because I know that water is going to get cold. It doesn't really affect anything on the main floor. The things in the basement at the front of the building get very cold. And so that is native turtles, all of my alligator snapping turtles, anything in the Maremis genus is all toward the front of the basement. I'm hibernating, the brumating, whatever. The trio of Eastern Black Kings from Chris is up there by the front wall.
Very cool.
I keep cresteds, all that kind of thing. Those are all downstairs because that's where all the turtles and the alligators and stuff are. And so the humidity is ridiculous. I don't heat any of that stuff. I don't heat any of the natives or the Maremis in the wintertime. They all basically are just chilling.
I'm sure the buildings there are much better insulated to handle because,
yeah, it's a cinder block
anyways.
building from the late 1800s. The entire downtown essentially is.
Sounds haunted.
And then so my place that I rent was a tanning facility way back in the day. And so even in my basement, there's a separated room in the basement with a drain and all that stuff where they did the spray tan, which is kind of hilarious.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's going to end up, well, assuming we stay here and so on and so forth with all this job stuff. But that is probably going to end up being separated for the alligators. Just because, and not even really through a temperature control thing. I just like the idea of having a secondary door to be able to lock.
And a drain.
Well, yeah, the drain's a big deal. But no, like most of that stuff, like there are two, well, there are more than two, but there are 2 300-gallon troughs in the basement that are full of dirt instead of being full of liquid. And that is, there's a Russian tortoise in one who's just overwintering, chilling out. And the other one is the base of that 7x4x6 that I am undecided with, but that's probably gonna be South American stuff. But same way, like I'm going to have my yellow anaconda and the 2 red tails are going to be chilling in there. And at nighttime, I'll just turn everything off. I don't care. They'll be fine. It's not going to get below 60.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me
freak out about that especially, and I'm convinced basically anything, unless you keep niche species or really weird things like amphibians and stuff, everything we keep can get to 60. It's fine. Like just it gradually. You can't just put the air conditioner on and blast it.
Right.
But over a 24-hour period going 85 to 60 to 85, everything we have, barring external stressors or diseases, it's fine.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, going back to the leap fogger. Does it take time to fire up, and does it have to be on for a particular amount of time for it really to do its job?
So both. So it's immediate. It's very good. It's very powerful. You can set it to the length of time you want it to run and intervals that you want it to run. I think it's 2, 4, 12, 2, 4, 8, 12 might be your hour choices. And then you can do 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 2, 4, 12, something like that. There are choices for how you want it to run. And then it has a singular opening coming out of the top, and it comes with a bunch of connections and stuff to either it's made for 2 of their enclosures, which are probably
2-footers,
like medium exos, you know,
2x18s.
Yeah. And so, but for me, like the one, I don't use the hoses at all. I just put it inside the the beauty snake enclosure. With the berm enclosure, I run a hose end to end, so it takes a little bit to get to, work its way through the hose.
Right.
The iguana, I literally just hooked the hose back under, and I'm running like one. Basically, I'm running one fogger per really big enclosure. And then, based off of, like, my iguana is with the redfoot, they have a concrete mixing tub for water, so they have a lot of water. But I'm still running it 2 minutes at a time every 2 hours for them. I'm doing 2 minutes at a time every 4 hours for the berm and the retic. Beauty snake, I was only doing 2 every 4. But that's also given the fact that like the enclosures that I'm using hold it really well.
Yeah.
And I've cut down on where the fogger is coming in is opposite of all the heat emitters, and I have reduced airflow in that area. But I have not reduced airflow by the heat side at all. So it's not going to get hot and sticky. If you want to cool off and just breathe in that cold, wet air, you can go over there and do that. And if you don't,
you want to be dry
here and get blasted.
That's cool.
And let them pick.
So the reason I ask, and I'm glad you told me about the different like features and times and stuff that it has. My thought process is when I get these black box cages up and running and I have the montane rattlesnakes in there as well as my field eye, I really want to work on this whole microclimate, high humidity in the morning thing, because when you go to these arid, high elevation, arid environments, everything, when the sun comes up, everything is covered in dew. There's a light fog. It's wet. It's moist. And then come 9, 10 a.m., it's 154 degrees on those rocks. Like temp gun the rocks, 150, 155, right? So in my mind, what I would love to do is I would love to have some kind of fogging element that turns on for, I don't know, 2 minutes every morning and then shuts off for the rest of the day. So that way, like an hour before the quote unquote sun comes up, you know, and then throughout the day, it dries.
What the chameleon folks are doing now, and that I'm copying for some things, is it's mist and fog, right? So misters, realistically, misters should be for ambient humidity and to keep your plants alive.
Okay.
Unless you have, chameleons are weird, some snakes are weird. They prefer to drink droplets, and so then you're providing that, right?
Sure.
What they're doing now is they set an extra time on their misters, and that goes off at like whatever 6 a.m. because your lights turn on at 8, whatever.
Right.
So you run that mister an extra 2 minutes at 6, right? So everything's has standing water on it, and then they run that fogger at 6:30, at 7, at whatever.
Right.
Run it for like 5 minutes, just fog that sucker out, right? That standing water is going to allow or cause that fog to stick around a little bit longer in that misty form.
Sure.
But you know that come 8, it's going to turn on.
Yeah.
And so then it's going to start to push all that down as that heat comes out, all that natural flow. And then the theory being for the chameleons, they're going to choose to sleep where those things are affecting them in the way that they want to be affected.
Right.
And so, you know, when you're setting it up for something like a chameleon, obviously don't point your mister and fogger at the branch for basking. Like, be smart about it. But if you give them a space to sleep that is, as you should anyway, that is theoretically covered by plant material or whatever you choose to use, fake or real.
Right.
When your mister hits all that, then your water drops are on it. When it does it during the day, your chameleon's going to be there because they want to drink. Now they're there because they want to sleep and be hidden from your monkey face. And so that leaf cover is going to protect them from the mist as they want when they sleep. Then that fog is going to hit, and because they're inside of the leaves and stuff where they want to be anyway, all that is stuck there. So now they're just breathing it in. Lights are going to turn on. Heat's going to push all that down. They're going to dry out, come out, do their thing, bask, UV, whatever lizard stuff they do for the day, and come back to warm and dry how they should be. And so the whole idea is that you're basically trapping them in that fog to where they're breathing it in when they're asleep. And for the monitor folks, it's the same thing. when you had guys like Frank and now Mike Stefani are talking about, using the reed stack so they can pick their levels for heat, they're also talking about having really deep dirt that's wet at the bottom. Because when they dig down and they're already warm, that if they dig down into dry dirt after being dry and hot, they're drying themselves out further, breathing in that dusty hole.
Yeah.
They need to be essentially sleeping in the composition of a lay box all the time. So there should always be stratification to moist substrate. It's a lot like keeping tarantulas or any of these small things.
Sure,
We're just using huge dirt boxes.
Right.
And that's why I like keeping it a diversity of stuff, because when I listen to tarantula nerds talk about dripping water down the side of the dirt thing for the baby that's burrowed to the bottom, it's the exact same thing as monitor nerds talking about, oh, you're cooking your Aki and you're cooking your Savannah. Give them that deep dirt. They can sleep in that wet dirt. And they do. They get in that hole. They get in that crevice. They get in that burrow and sleep in wet dirt. They come out and cook at 150 and feel like a handbag, but that ain't where they're sleeping.
Yeah. Well put. That's great. So yeah, so you
or crocheting or something as the sticks are turning above your hands.
He's still muted.
Don't hate.
I'm just saying.
It's the Manzanita side hustle.
Working on another piece.
That's right.
I even take the wood burner and carve a JS in there.
Hey,
look at
there you go.
Look at you. But yeah, I think that's a great idea to get that whole morning dew thing and trap in the humidity in those microclimates. And I don't need humidity over everything. I need humidity under everything.
Yep.
And that's good, man. I'm probably going to buy one of the leaps just because I really have been watching them on Instagram just to give it a test run, and I actually have a giant male Cerastes that's like my pet viper, and he's the guinea pig. He's the one that I don't feel like changing his light bulb. He can go a couple weeks without a light bulb, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And he's in a 211 vision, and I think that I'm going to use him as my guinea pig to see if his enclosure gets messed up, who cares? I take him out, I'll dry him off and give him a bucket of sand. But I would hate to have one of my nice, with all the rocks and stone and everything, and then all of a sudden I start using this fogger and it just makes it a wet, soppy mess, and I have to spend weeks drying everything out. So I'm probably going to buy one and use him as the guinea pig and kind of see what happens. But I know that my experience with some of the Zoom Ed foggers and stuff, it was not, they burnt out from my lack of, how do I phrase this? The mechanisms that drove them burnt out from a lack of use, because I wouldn't, how do I phrase this? So it has a timer, right? It wants to go off every 4 hours, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's not. I'm only using it once a day. So what I would do is I would plug it into its own wall socket timer so that it turns on in the morning.
Okay.
Immediately it turns on. It does its spray for however long, and then it stops. By the time it's ready to spray again, it has no power going to it.
Oh. Okay.
So because I was doing that every day, the thing burned out in 2 or 3 months. Because it's like turn on, turn off, turn on, turn off, opposed to just leaving it on and letting it do its thing.
Right.
So that's honestly probably my biggest fear, aside from flooding the cage,
Right. Yeah, I was really, really impressed with them. I don't have a lot of information about longevity yet.
Yeah, I mean it's a new product,
But as far as function, awesome. It's been
okay.
Really good. Really, really good.
Then yeah, I'll take a stab at one. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Someone do a review for the website.
Yeah.
Ooh, I could do that. Yeah.
Make it happen, Billy boy.
We still have a website that still needs stuff on it.
Yeah, I could definitely do that.
Help.
I could review that. I could review Zoopoxy. Yeah, hell yeah.
Hell yeah. I just bought my first 1 gallon can of dry lock.
Oh, cool.
So I'm going to hopefully this week, if I have time, I'm going to make some fake gravel and stone.
Cool.
So, yeah,
that stuff's awesome too. I really
my
enjoyed
buddy's
working with that.
My buddy's been using it for all of his Rhacodactylus, and I just I'm literally sitting next to a like 50-pound bag of crushed granite and like a 50-pound bag of pea gravel, and it looks so good. It looks so good in enclosures, but it literally makes every enclosure 15 pounds heavier.
Yep.
So I started carving fake pieces of like shale and like what I'm going to make as shale, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm snapping off all these pieces of foam, right? And I see all this nice chunks of foam that I'm going to throw away, and I'm like, I can put some dry lock in a solo cup and just dunk each piece. And yeah, it's going to take me hours to do this, but I can make fake gravel, and God forbid there's a rock slide or an avalanche in the enclosure. Who cares if the snake gets smushed because it's foam?
Yeah.
You know, so that's I got the thing of dry lock, and then my buddy Chris was telling me about just he takes standard acrylic paint, like modeling acrylic paint, and he just adds a couple drops to a solo cup of dry lock, and he can make his different tints.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had no idea.
I used what the hell was it? I used concrete stain and tint when I was doing it. Super simple.
You know the flex that they sell at Home Depot that you add to like a concrete floor to give it that texturing?
Uh-huh.
Have you ever tried using that? I feel like it would look too cliche. I feel like it would look fake.
I have not. I used that in college with Portland cement to make a monster bearded dragon mountain.
Nice.
I mean, it was kind of cool, but like if you're not building an 8x6x4, like it's kind of dumb. And then I think we like chainsawed that apart to take it out of the school. Like it was ridiculous. It's not like you're sculpting it in concrete in plywood. Like it gets out of hand.
I get it.
That's why the dry lock things and the Zoopoxy on pink foam, became as popular as they are, because we used like actual concrete. Like we took like the chicken wire and made structure and dude, by the end of that, if that had fallen over, it would have killed 7 children. Like it was dumb. And then I saw Billy said the Zoopoxy versus dry lock foam workup. If you were watching when I was doing stuff for the BlackBox enclosures, you would have seen that, Billy Jenkins, that I did a comparison of those two. Just saying.
Yeah, he's saying he did dry lock and acrylic paint for his Tokay enclosure. So that's cool.
Yeah, dude, there is a reason that every dart frog YouTube on the planet is, well, here's my black pond and stone foam that I then carved and put dry lock. Every single person does it. Because it's incredibly effective. If you are doing small animals that will not destroy it.
Yeah.
If you are going to do an animal that will not harm the background, you should do foam and dry lock every time, bar none, to save on weight and cost and everything. There's no reason to use something like Zoopoxy unless you're trying to make, wood or the things that Justin is trying to do, some very specific project.
Sure.
The only reason, in my opinion, I use and talk about Zoopoxy so much is because it's an adult male green iguana. It's a tegu. It's large destructive things. The vast majority of the stuff that we're talking about, if it can fit in an exo or a black box, man, use foam and dry lock.
And I will say this too, is before I ever dabbled with dry lock or any of this stuff, it was grout. And for like girl tail lizards that are literally, they destroy They don't destroy. Let me rephrase that. They beautifully etch background foam.
Yeah. Yep.
Because it literally looks like someone's been sanding it for 20 years. And because of that, I use the grout because it's so hard and such a rough texture. I figured it also helped keep their nails kind of trim, you know?
Yeah.
And but again, it adds all that weight because it's freaking grout, you know?
Yeah.
It's so heavy. And on the foam, I feel like if you're scuffing up the foam correctly enough to get the grout to adhere correctly, it's just soaking it in and it just sucks it up, and you got to do another coat, and it sucks it up, and you got to do another coat. So
that's the only benefit to the Zoopoxy being the 2-part composition is, you know, using the pink foam base, using the PVC bases like I was. You negate that, and then it's just adhering to it, and then you're done.
Yeah.
But that adds weight. You know, I'm mitigating that weight by having pink foam be the base of the cliff,
the
or
mass
whatever.
of it. Right.
But it's still an inch of 2-part clay that hardened into concrete on top of it. Then even the black boxes, 3x3x18. When I built, the one is the 2 rock stacks. Even with the sand in there, I can just pick that up.
Sure.
The whole
thing is like what, 50, 60 pounds, the whole thing?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I chose to use sand,
not
like crushed walnut or whatever stupid stuff. I put sand in there, which adds a lot of weight. The other one, man, when I showed on the video where I tilted it over, and it's in there. I would have to like grinder it out to get it out of the black box now, but like once I put the sand in that thing, me and Teresa put it on the shelf. Like that's pretty heavy. And that's just pink styrofoam underneath there. There's nothing else in there but that Zoopoxy paint and sand. It's got some weight to it, man. Not nearly what it would have stacking slate or some insanity.
Exactly. Or tile.
That's the only thing I love giant enclosures because I think you get to see cool behaviors that we just don't see.
Sure.
Having an 8-foot enclosure with beards in it is awesome. But if I chose to make an 8-foot enclosure the way I like to see a 40 breeder for a beard, it'd weigh 800 pounds. That's crazy.
Easy.
You have to mitigate those things where you can. It's just doing the best you can. Dude, so Christopher says, I've done foam, covered it with Gorilla Glue, and pressed dirt and moss into it. So if you do that, that works. That's super cool. If you do it, spray the Gorilla Glue with water, like out of a really fine plant mister. And then as it dries, it gets these like pock marks in it. And then switch on to it. It looks really cool. I've got a couple enclosures like that. They're cool.
Nice. Along the same lines, my buddy Chris was, again, we were talking about all this dry lock and stuff. He was telling me about the one type of super glue that I can't remember the name of it, the one that's safe for animals. Every brand of super glue, Loctite, Gorilla Glue, they all have this one type, this one chemical. And I didn't realize this, but if you squirt the super glue onto your insulation foam and then stick your pieces together, well, I didn't like the way that I did it, so I just pulled it apart, right? I knew it was going to rip. Well, that chemical eats away at the foam kind of like an acid, and it leaves these crazy textures.
Yeah.
So I found myself literally, I'm wasting glue experimenting, but squirting a bunch of super glue into a piece of foam, taking a plastic butter knife that's disposable, smearing it and letting it eat away at it to give that texture. And cyan accolade. That's it. And again, wasteful and probably not the best for my lungs, but it gave me a very unique desired result that I was not expecting at all.
Yeah.
So just like you're spraying the water to give it the pocking.
Yep.
There's a reason God gave you 2.
Yeah.
Oh, I will say too, some people saw it, and then Troy Goldberg showed it as well on YouTube. When you're doing I use the black pond and stone foam, and then you can carve it just like with a X-Acto or something. The thing that Troy showed and that I did, you can take they have like a Brillo pad attachment for your drills,
Oh wow.
and scuff it up that way. Um, it ends up being really cool. It makes an ungodly mess when
Really?
you grinder that foam, because then
Oh yeah.
it's literally ground up bits of foam. It gets
Yeah.
everywhere. It sticks to everything because when you're using,
It's styrofoam sawdust.
yeah, and when you're using one of the drills, then it creates static electricity. So now it's stuck to everything. And I have hairy arms, and I was just coated.
Pink. Just pink everywhere.
It looks awesome when after you dry lock it. It's super cool.
Nice. Nice.
But man, it is a filthy mess.
Do you like keep your shop vac handy?
Yeah, I literally just turned it on and just did it into the
Yeah.
shop vac stuck at the bottom of the black box.
And it's still got all over you.
Oh yeah. Because with the static electricity coming off of the drill and then sticking to the hair on my arms, it was ridiculous.
That real quick before I lose that thought. Speaking of static electricity, on my black box cages, because the sliding glass doors are I don't know, dare I say acrylic? I should probably know this. It has dust that I cannot get off. And the glass is so crystal clear. It's so beautiful. Black box glass is flawlessly crystal clear.
Yeah.
But all I see is the dust. And like I wipe it down with alcohol and the dust lands on it. And I wipe it down with chlorhexidine and the dust lands on it. I feel like when I close it, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. I think I may just have to deal with it.
Pretty much. I don't know, man. Like I know that they sponsor us or whatever. Dude, their stuff is killer. Like the doors are super clear.
So good.
The fixtures are really nice. Like I don't know. It's awesome.
Oh, Smitty, do you mind if I show those videos that I didn't get to show last week when my internet took a crap on me and died?
Do it.
All right, let me pull up Facebook real quick so I can steal these videos. Just to show, because we're on the black box topic. I might as well show off.
That's
this is a nice piece. It's tall. It's got some cool forks. A wing nut. You drill just a hole in the cage, and then you attach it like so. Whoop. It's crepe myrtle. It's super hard. I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. Got a whole tub of these things to make. Many more. I don't know why I'm whispering like a creep. So this one has got one coat of the poly on it. I'm going to hit it again before I go to bed. And then it will be complete. So. Each one is a piece of art, and they're going to be $50 a piece. I'm kidding. They won't be $50 a piece. But I will have some for sale at some point once I sort of stockpile them and make them more. All natural. All natural. Yeah, see, look at that. Phil goes to get his video. And, his computer decides to.
Ooh, speaking of selling and purchasing things, is there more information about the happenings on February 1st?
There's still a couple things I need to do. There's 31 days in January, right?
There is.
Okay. So I got some small stuff just to finish up, and then it will be going up.
Awesome.
Excellent.
See, yeah, when I saw that picture, I was surprised. I didn't think they were that deep. Like, for some reason, I thought they were shallower than that.
Yeah, they're 24 wide, 24 tall, 18 deep. And they are exquisite.
That looks bigger. That looks deeper than 18.
Maybe I got it wrong. Maybe it's 24 deep and 18 tall. Maybe
that would make more sense.
That'd make more sense. So that, boys and girls, is the XT2 slider with venomous lock built into the middle. And I am so freaking excited. So I will show you the goods. This is how it came. Packaged to perfection. Not only was literally every line of the external corners, edges of the enclosure were beautifully wrapped in styrofoam, but it fit in the.
Oh. Bark twice if you're in Milwaukee.
It fit beautifully in something beautiful, as Phil said.
Check out the sanding discs that go into a drill. It could make prep easier for you with the branches. Yeah, there's probably a handful of ways I could make this much easier on myself. I got to sharpen the knife like every day after I finish doing some. I want to get a little like metal brand that I can use. You can get one off Etsy. I don't know. This big one is the one that I started last night. I got to figure this out though, because this one's probably about 2 inches in diameter where it would connect. So I'm trying to figure out if I should use a bigger hanger bolt than what I use on the other ones. But this one's got a lot of, I got to sand this one a lot. I don't know. It's pretty neat. It's weird. Sandblasting would be awesome.
Oh, yeah.
That would make life so much easier. Look, guy, you sit here and hype up your videos, and then you just...
StreamYard is just killing me. It's like it doesn't want...
I tried to make it full screen. I'm sorry. I think that was why.
I think maybe Phil is...
Oh, my God. Oh. I don't know. They make some pretty big hanger bolts, though, Jenkins.
True.
One that's just proportional. And it's not super heavy. It's not like it's going to snap off. And I guess if you're not keeping them with something that weighs a lot, it's not going to be that big of a deal. It's not going to be anything major.
Well, I think you kind of have to take that into account, too, of like even if you're using, like, that's a fairly good size branch, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to use it for, maybe don't use it for a heavy bodied species and just use it as a focal point in your cage design type of thing. Like, it could still be a rat snake, you know, that can just be central to what you're putting your other cage decor around, I guess. You know, you don't have to put a Angolan python on it or something.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm going to try this one more time. If it doesn't work, I'm making Smitty do it.
Let me get Facebook ready.
All right. So here,
I also am relying on Smitty for StreamYard assistance because I don't know what I'm doing.
So here is the 3.
Glory.
All right. Those are the 3 cages.
Nobody move.
Right.
Wow.
In their 3 boxes. And I'm short. I'm 5'5", 5'6" on a good day. So they were packaged really, really well. You saw me open them. So here is I had them cut the screen top, and then it has a perfectly fit lid. So if I want to do external heat lamps, I can do external heat lamps. If I need ventilation, I could just take that lid off. But that lid actually fits perfectly, like damn near seamless. And I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, but like see this black line right there? That black line is actually a track for the LED light cord to go through. So it spits out the back, so that literally they're completely stackable.
Yeah.
So
and the screen, so like the vents on the Bio G2, they're like layered. They're not just screwed onto the side or attached some random way. Like they're actually they're not going anywhere. You can put a lot of weight on those things before they break.
Yeah.
He froze again. Okay.
I'm telling you, man, I don't know. I don't want people to think we're like just hyping it up because whatever. Like they're awesome. They're like I built those enclosures, and they're freaking awesome. Like I've not found a thing I don't like about them yet. I've been really, really impressed.
Yeah, they're the quality's without a doubt there. So let me see, where did he send these?
So Utah EDC is asking why you sand off all the bark and whatnot, Justin.
Mostly, I mean, there's a lot of lichen and stuff on it, so it's mostly out of sort of convenience. I've been wanting to try just doing an epoxy coat on that and seeing how it looks. Not an epoxy, but a poly coat.
If you didn't coat them, like living where you live and seeing how they are when they're just on the ground or whatever, like is it something where they would decay pretty rapidly, do you feel?
No, so it's not like I've used just raw, like uncoated before with a chondro as a perch, and it got some like blue fuzz all over it. If you were keeping them in like a dryer setup, I wouldn't worry about it. Like it's not a toxic wood or anything like that. And yeah, so the bark on them is almost like potato skin, like it's super thin. There's just a ton of lichen and stuff on some of these that I have, which I mean they look cool, and some people may want that. So I don't know. I'm gonna play around with it and see what happens. Some people may like the natural look. It's mostly just making sure it doesn't mold and get gross if it's being used in a high humidity kind of thing. And some people, I kind of like the look of the raw, or not raw, but the the debarked kind of modeling you get with some of the spots that didn't get fully taken off. Phil, I'm bringing up your thing right now.
I'm gonna resend you the video, the remaining videos. That way they're like you don't have to scroll back.
I have them pulled up.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I'll be brutally honest, it's StreamYard. I just like the last time I froze, I tested other internet stuff and everything's working fine. So it's freaking StreamYard. Does not want me to stream from. Anyway, to the videos.
Anti-Florida.
Can you see them?
Yeah, but they look laggy on my end. Are they smooth for you, Billy?
They are now. Yeah,
okay.
I think it's it might be freaking out when it. I don't think it's the screen.
Yeah,
like when that screen becomes more obvious. Like, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, look how. Yeah, so that's the locking mechanism. And one thing that I do love is, I don't know if this is on purpose or if this is just a uniform cage thing, but the locks that they gave me for my previous shipment of cages, it's the same lock and key. So now I have multiple keys for all, and they're all matching the same lock. But I really like this key lock system because, first of all, you can't, especially with venomous, you can't just unlock a bunch of cages. You can only unlock the one that is using the key. And that's a great thing for venomous and some of the more, hazardous critters, because now I'm forcing myself to only unlock one at a time, and the key is with the lock. So in
it
order
like
for me
retains the core.
right. So in order for me to unlock another cage, I have to lock the one I was just in, which I think is fantastic. They put these little nubs on the glass so that I can use a snake hook to slide them and open them. I don't have to use my hand, which I thought was really great. And then the cut for the track is so smooth and so silky. It glides like a hot knife through melted butter. If you want to go to the next video. So this is the dimmer switch for the LED lights. And not only are they built real solid, but they made a aluminum snap track on the upper top lip, so the lights literally snap in there. So if you had to take them out, or God forbid an animal, a heavier bodied snake or something knocks them out, it's not adhesive, it's not screwed in, nothing's permanently damaging, so you just snap them back in, their work. And then in this right here, I'm showing the ceiling. Whatever acrylic or aquarium sealer they used, it is a flawless bead all the way through. It looks like a perfect weld.
Yeah, so I did mine myself on the Ackie cage, and it definitely doesn't look anywhere near as good as that.
Yeah,
looks like a blind kid did it.
I wish you could zoom in on that seal job. That seal job is so smooth and perfect. It's amazing. It's almost like they do this professionally.
Yeah, and the nice thing with the LEDs, because I have all the 4 BioGs stacked on top of each other, so a quadrant of 4, and all of those, they have these tethers where all the LEDs plug into the tether, and then it streamlines it to one cord.
Oh, that's cool.
So you can still change them, like you can still turn them off individually through that dimmer,
right?
But instead of having 4 different plugs in one outlet, it all connects at the it's like a braid with like 10 adapters on it, and they plug into that, and then so that was a feature I really liked on it, and it makes things a lot easier because they use the same LEDs, like the same brand LEDs. So whether it's a 6-foot cage or the BioGs or something, you can connect them all and have them all funneled to one outlet.
Phil, somebody asked in the chat, are the sliders glass or acrylic?
They're not glass. It's some kind of acrylic of some kind. It's not the same acrylic that I've used in the past because it has a lot of flex to it, which I think is great, because especially if you're not using your hand to open and close it, you sometimes can't gauge, like you don't know your own strength. And like I've slammed and cracked a lot of sliding glass because I'm using a snake hook, and something that's venomous is getting a little unruly, and I have to slam the glass real quick.
Yep.
And I've cracked it, and I'm very, very confident that this, whatever kind of acrylic or poly resin or whatever this plastic is, it feels great. It has just enough flex, and it's crystal clear.
And those come assembled.
They came completely assembled. The only thing I did was put the key in. Well, actually, I lied. So all I had to do is literally unlock them. They come locked so that the glass isn't sliding around. But on 2 of them, the LED lights popped out of the track, which is actually how I figured out that it had that aluminum retaining clip. And I was like, how does this work? Do I slide it? And I literally just pushed with my hand, and went pop and just snapped in. So. And looks like was it Billy Jenkins asked about? Yeah. Billy Jenkins says, could you plastic weld PVC? Not to speak for everyone, but I know I have friends that did plastic weld PVC for enclosures, and it held up great, except for weight integrity. It held the seal well in terms of like being liquid resistant, but it wound up cracking because it wasn't drilled together. And I feel like if you plastic welded it and then still drilled it, you'd be golden. But I imagine that's a much harder, lengthier, more expensive process too.
And you've got all the Montaigne stuff going into those, right?
Yeah,
That's the
so
final verdict.
That's the final verdict. Yeah, so it'll have two different. So I have lone adults that I need to get mates for, but it'll eventually be two different localities of Marulus, and then a maculosus. So Tamaulipas rattlesnakes and Durango mountain rattlesnakes. And then I hope to get more. I'll probably do dusky pygmies in one, and then eventually clobberi in another. And then I still have the giant 3-foot one for the field eye that I've just been procrastinating doing it, So, and I got for the backdrop, I got Nipper sent me a picture of the Negev that he took where he saw field eye. So that'll be super cool to get like his photo as the background on that one too.
Vision cages are single piece molded, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they are. Which is why they last forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, $1 bazillion to make the mold, and then you just pump them out. So I'm not going to get rid of any of my Visions. I love Vision. I'm a diehard Vision user. They have their faults, but in my personal opinion, the pros dramatically outweigh the cons. Man, how many do I have? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I've got like 15 Visions. Shit.
Worth their weight in gold.
They legit are. They legit are. And I've had to replace glass because I cracked it slamming glass, or you take the glass off to clean it and you lean it up against the wall, or you lean it up against the trash can, and your shoe touches the corner of it and it just hits the ground and cracks and shatters. So I've had to replace a lot of Vision glass, which is why I'm very excited about these BlackBox. Whatever plastic glass they're using, it's awesome.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Jen because I'm honestly not sure.
Yeah,
it's not super soft. Like like the plexi that I had on the AP cage that Jake had that I used for years. You looked at it wrong and it seemed like it would scratch and it warped. And I mean, it's granted it's a very old cage, but this doesn't seem like that same material.
Yeah, I imagine eventually I may have to get some kind of plastic runners for the bottom, because I know just from personal experience, I'm going to get sand and grit in that track, and that's going to slowly start to, for lack of a better word, sandpaper away that bottom acrylic or bottom plexi, whatever it is. But it doesn't feel like I've had some that you use too abrasive of a paper towel and it left scratch marks. So
yeah. Well,
we're at the mark. It's bedtime.
Yep.
Bill's in the past. He's not that sleepy.
The hell are you talking about?
You're in the
same time you are.
No, you're not. You're an hour behind, I thought, right?
I'm on the East Coast, buddy.
Are you? Is it really?
Yeah.
I'm
in Pennsylvania.
Crazy. Oh. Okay. Why did I feel like that was central?
At the safe house.
Why did I feel like that? Like your half is central.
Nah, bro. Nah, man. I'm in the state that has the Hamburg show. I went there and saw me all kinds of venomous.
Oh yeah,
and the door though. I was mad. That? I didn't get my free gaboon at the door. I was mad. So I got to name it Phil.
For $75, you just buy one. Did you see anything cool at Ham or no?
Oh my God. Tons of, actually, it was not, I was disappointed with the fact that it wasn't horrible. It's a nice reptile show. Like the The venomous are all appropriately marked. Everything is labeled. There's signs that they're not selling to kids. It was much nicer and none of the wildness that everybody talks about.
Maybe they heard you were coming.
I don't know. There were tons of really cool turtles. It was actually like, it's not big. It's kind of small, but like for a reptile show that is that size, I thought it was really cool. Owen McIntyre goes there, like due to his table alone, like all the weird crap he breeds now, like he brought a reptile show to his table.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
I'm from Illinois, so I don't see venomous at shows. So it was just cool to see it for me. But yeah, everybody, like I went and talked to people that had that stuff on their tables. Everything was marked. They put red tape.
Yeah.
Every vendor there had red tape on anything that was venomous. It was, in my opinion, all appropriately expensive. There were very few cheap venomous animals there.
Well, that's the trend now.
There were bunches of captive bred venomous animals there. I was really impressed with that.
Interesting.
A lot of really, really, really pretty rattlesnakes that I dearly wanted to spend money on, but I did not. Yeah, it was. It's probably like Daytona. I'm sure when I go, you miss the 80s. We were doing blow and driving Lamborghinis or whatever, No, I was actually impressed. I'm glad I went. So
that's good, man. That's good.
Everyone dressed like Don Johnson.
Yeah.
Right? That's the Daytona I want to go to. Yeah, there's a venomous room over there. You got to do a line to even get in. Like,
no, that's Columbia, bro. It's Columbia.
Well,
I'll never forget that. Be like, what's behind the curtain? Oh, that's the venomous section. Oh, a curtain. Nice.
Right. Yeah. Safety first.
Yeah, safety first.
Security is tip top.
Yep.
Do you have a stamp on your hand of a frog? No entry.
That's cool, man. That's cool. And Richard Schubert says $250 for Gaboon Vipers at his local PA show. Man, they've gone up.
Inflation.
Yeah, legit.
Damn it, Biden.
I mean, that's not a cheap.
It's not unreasonable.
Snake,
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's probably captive bred. But I know, like nobody's importing baby gaboons because the importers want too much money.
Right.
Because they see us sell a captive bred for $250, $300. So they're like, oh, that's how much they go for. That's how much I want at the wholesale level. So it trickles down.
Stuff like that. Like I hate the idea of, I don't want irresponsible people to own them.
Right.
But I also don't want, like, everybody that keeps cobras says that they're just a snake. Like, they're not in attitude, in danger, and things like that. But as far as like they eat crap, lay eggs, have baby, it's just a snake. Like, and so should they be expensive so that goofballs won't buy them? Yeah. But if you're a responsible person doing the right thing, and then it's like, am I paying a goofball tax? Like, they're not hard to breed or keep. Like, that's not fair either. You know what I mean? Like, I like the goofball tax, but at the same time, I'm not a goofball, so I don't want to pay it. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. You said it, man. You said it.
Because that, look at croc monitors. Like, it's not a pet. It's not a safe animal, in my opinion.
Agreed.
But for somebody like me, like, if I'm going to show the public a lizard, it's to my benefit, and kind of selfishly, I think it's to everyone's benefit if I show the public a dragon
Right.
An 8-foot eyes like a velociraptor on Jurassic Park dragon. But at 4 G's for a baby, I'm not doing it. I'll show him my Argus. Like, you know what I mean? And
they'll get the idea.
Yeah, but I know why they're doing it, and I'm glad. And I don't want people to walk around with laces and Crocs and get jacked up, but I want one too, man. Like, I don't want to sell a car to buy one.
Yeah, well put. I think it also, like, goofball tax aside, it comes in waves where nobody is producing them because they're like, oh, everyone does it, so I'm not going to. Well, if everyone has that attitude, then no one has it, and then it dries up, and then that's why 10 years ago puff adders were $800 when it should be like $25. So
right. Well,
diffusion
look at
the responsibility.
The guy that did he did Crocs, Lace, and Black Dragons, and now I don't remember his name. Did it, killed it, super successful at it, great, produced a bunch of babies, and then was like, I showed that I could do that. I'm cool. And then now he doesn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And so, like, I know as a monitor nerd, lace monitors are cool, but lace monitors breed like every other Australian monitor. It's just that you can't get them. And so I'm not paying Bell's Phase lace monitor prices when I know if I wait a little bit, because I'm one of those nerds that knows a guy, it'll be half that in 2 years. Like, I'm not giving you 8 G's for a lizard that breeds like an Ackie. I cannot put my brain on that.
Yeah. I get it. Well, gentlemen, is there anything else we want to cover before we say goodnight?
If nobody knew, this show was brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com. In case you couldn't tell, which, like you said, we love them. That's why they're a sponsor. We love their products. When we talk about them like this, we're talking about them from an objective standpoint.
Legit.
They are some of the best. The best.
Yeah.
On that note, I am biased, but objectively, it's a great product. All of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, the Sacred Land of Orcas, Puget Sound. Check them out. Puget Sound Pythons, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. We will be back for THP on Thursday. I know it's been 2 weeks without that. We had the Corn Starters episode last Thursday, which was awesome. And we were going to do a THP Friday. That didn't happen because Jake was going down to Florida to hang out with Elijah Day and Skylar and pick up some stuff and whatnot. So
glad I got a phone call.
Should be back Thursday.
And supposedly there were shenanigans. We got messages about shenanigans.
Yeah, I was not invited.
Sick.
This is before I was sick, right?
No, I don't know. I was gonna go with him, but
yesterday.
No, it was. Wait, what's today? Monday. Mm-hmm. He came back yesterday, I think.
Oh, so then I was sick, but he didn't know that.
Doesn't matter.
Nice.
The invitation's all that counts.
Yep.
All right. Thank you all. We'll see you later.
Bye.